Gentlemen, again to the Young Guy International podcast. This is the third episode of the podcast. Wherever you're listening or watching this from, I want to thank you and welcome you to the podcast. Obviously, the mission here is to create a socially connected world by diving deep into captivating stories, ideas, and experiences that shape our world. At the end of the day, providing you with fresh perspectives and a renewed sense of curiosity. Whether you're a seasoned enthusiast or a curious beginner, this podcast is for everyone who craves a bit of intellectual stimulation and thought provoking discussions from the different guests that I have. Today with me, I'm honored and humbled to have Randell Adjei, an author, inspirational speaker, arts educator, and obviously a community leader who uses spoken words to empower and transform through edutainment, which is an interesting concept that he's going to share with us through one of his organizations that he started called R.I.S.E. He's the founder of one of Toronto's largest and longest running youth-led initiatives, reaching intelligent souls everywhere. R.I.S.E. Edutainment. Rendell, thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast. Happy to have you here.
Good to be here. Really good to be here. I always like supporting great initiatives, so good to be a part of it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Before we get into it, I think you guys have seen from the first two episodes, we do have an icebreaker that we are implementing into this new season because it is the Young Guy International. Sort of the first step to getting to know our guests is to getting to know their culture, their roots. And today, I did want to ask you, Randell, whether there's a word or two that you wanted to share with us, teach us for the people listening, for those watching, a word or two from your native language.
So I speak Ga. I'm from Ghana, and I speak Ga. Ga is
Mhm.
the language that's predominantly spoken by the people who are indigenous to Accra, the capital city. And what I'll say is, so young I. I'll give you the translation for young I. All right. And so young is bike, as in like child or young person. And I is ime. So bike ime. Ime means
Oh,
I. Yeah. So that's
oh, Bika Ime.
yeah. That's what it would be. Otherwise, if you ever meet a Ghanaian or somebody who speaks Ghan, you want to say hi. It's te oyo ten. That's it. Or
Oh,
toyo ten. That's it. Te
Toyota.
oyo ten. That's it.
That's it. Right. Te Oyo Tan to you, and welcome to Bacon Ime, the podcast.
I like that. I like that. I like that.
I'm learning. I'm learning.
I like that.
So to get straight into it, Rendell, I wanted to start from the beginning. Rise Edutainment, and obviously there's so many different things that came together to sort of you founding this organization here in Canada. But the question I have for you is, what inspired you to found Reaching Intelligent Souls Everywhere, and what impact do you feel it has had? Because obviously the numbers can tell for themselves, but what impact do you feel it has had on Toronto's youth?
I first started it because in Scarborough, which is where I live and from, there are not many spaces where you can express yourself in a positive way. There are very little spaces where artists can go to express themselves, to build community. So I wanted to create a space that could allow for us to do that. I was 19 at the time. I was in university. I was trying to figure out my next steps. And I was looking at my community who was hurting, my community who was dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of challenges. And even for myself, as somebody who was looking to heal from what I was experiencing, what I realized was there was nowhere you can go to that was like
Mhm.
R.I.S.E. There was a lot of violence happening in the community. And I think with the violence, it was the people who needed to express themselves so that they would have another alternative opposed to violence. And then there was the people who were being impacted by the violence. And ultimately, I was just really focused on healing and self-expression
Mhm.
and giving people a space to feel like they can be themselves. So that's how I first started. When I think about the impact it's had on so many people, I never knew, I never thought it could affect so many people. I'm grateful for what it's done. We've been able to give more than 30,000 artists a place to go perform. For a lot of them, it's their first time performing, and that's makes me so happy. Um,
Mhm.
it really inspires me to think about how many people found the courage to come and share their stories and be vulnerable and we make positivity cool. That's what we do. Like, we make positivity cool. And I think it was a very
Mhm.
important time in 2012. And just to add to that, we've just really been able to reach out to a lot of people and give them a voice, help them know that they have a voice. I can't say we didn't give people a voice. We give them a platform to find their voice.
Mhm.
And the final thing I can say is we've been able to go to places like London. We've traveled to like a lot of different places we've been able to travel to help and bridge the gap, in terms of the work that we're looking
Mhm.
to do.
True. I like the fact that you said that obviously it's a platform that we're creating, and obviously to amplify youth voices and people that feel the need to express themselves in certain ways, and that helps them. I don't want to call it an escape, but it is an escape, at the end of the day. But it's something interesting you said. You said at just 19 years old, you sort of had this idea where you wanted to push something through. At at 19, I also had sort of the same passion to want to do something. That's how sort of the journey for the Young Guy Foundation started. But for you at 19, you're young, obviously, like I said, you're in university. What was it like sort of transitioning your idea into, putting it out there and saying, I'm just 19, I'm in university, I have all these different things that I need to do, but there's this thing that I really need to get done and I feel the need for it. So how are you able to navigate through that?
I believe for me, I'm somebody, once I put my mind to something, I really can't be
Mhm,
stopped. And I just had this vision. I never knew what it was going to amount to. I never knew what it was going to be for so many people. But at 19, you're young, you have a lot of energy, you're also ignorant. So I didn't
yeah.
know what I know now. I didn't know, that I didn't know so many different things. I just had this idea. That's it. So through passion and drive and motivation is what really got me there. But one of the things that I learned at 19 was the importance of learning about who you are as a person. And there's so many people, even in the 30s, 40s, who don't know who they are. And so I at a really early age, I was just in a place of trying to find myself. And they say, there's a quote that Mother Teresa says. It says, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And so I just wanted to serve
Mhm,
just like you, right? Like, we
mhm,
just wanted to
mhm,
serve and just to give back. So I don't think the age 19, I don't think my ignorance, I don't think any of it nothing could have held me back from doing what I was destined to do. When you have a vision for doing
mhm,
something, go for it. Don't let anybody
mhm.
else's vision taint yours. Um, but I'm glad that I was ignorant, because if I knew all the work that it was going to take, maybe I wouldn't be, maybe I wouldn't have done
Uh,
half the things I did.
That's true. And then obviously, I like the fact that you mentioned, when you have a strong vision, there's this urge, to want to achieve it regardless of what anyone is saying or what people are, trying to divert your path. But when you believe in something that is there for you, you run with it the entire way. And I think from your journey, you've seen that there's so many little other things that began sprouting and now create the Randell that we see
Hmm.
different from obviously 12 years ago. Um, Now, obviously, with being an author, being an inspirational speaker, and an arts educator, how how have you been able to integrate, all these different experiences, to create this this unique edutainment experience for yourself? Because I do know that it's not only for the people you're impacting, but for yourself. There's a lot that you must have learned from this. But how are you able to create, this unique integration and experience of edutainment?
That's a good question. I think early on, I was just so focused on, like, I saw how much it was helping people. And we started off with 23 people, 25, 27. It just started to grow so fast. By the end of the year, 200 people were coming out. So we knew we were doing something right. But because it was really me leading the charge, I had to build a team. Once I built a team, I found people who were really good at certain things, who are good at marketing, who are good at social media, who are good at organizing, who are good at event planning. Like, I had to find different people who can fit the different skill sets that were needed. And I think when you're getting older and when you're building something, you really want to be able to ask yourself, what am I good at? And what do
Mhm,
I need help with? And find those people who can help you. But what I love that I did is I did everything. I did from social media to event planning
mhm,
to hosting to performing. I did everything. So what it taught me
mhm,
was all the different layers of what's needed, so that when somebody that I brought onto the team needed support, then I can guide them. But if you don't
Mhm.
do it yourself and you bring somebody on the team, you're trusting everything in them. And so you want to use your expertise and your experience, their expertise and your experience, to help them move forward. Otherwise, if they come with a question that you don't know because you haven't experienced it, it makes it difficult. So that was my experience personally. Um, Once I built the team, then I started. People just started saying, "Randell, you need to focus on your brand." But I didn't. I wasn't doing it for me. Everyone's like, "No, but you're so good at performing. You're so good at this," and I was like, "Well, it just wasn't something that I was focused on." I'm glad that I did, because then it allowed me to write the book, because I had a team who could help build different aspects of it. Then it helped me to go perform in other places because I had that support. But I think, everything, you can only do one thing at a time. When I was writing the book, I was focused on writing my book. Um, when I was organizing, I was focused on organizing. There's so many things that come into it, but I think you really want to be able to know your skill sets. And that takes time, getting to know who you are as a person. And the final thing that I would say, in terms of doing all of these things, the edutainment methodology is really on this idea of, yes, you can entertain. Yes, you can make people
Mhm.
feel good, but you also want to leave something with them, something they
Mhm.
can walk away with. It doesn't have to be education, but something they can take away. So you're feeding their mind and you're feeding their heart, or you're feeding their body. You're making
Body.
them smile, you're making them think at the same time. So edutainment isn't just like, I have to give credit to KRS-One, who is one of the fathers of hip hop. He really, really understood the power of hip hop, and he introduced this idea of edutainment, that I've later found out. So it's just this idea of, you can't just be an entertainer. Like, you can't just be on the mic making people feel good. You got to make people think. You got to make people, like, you want to give people inspiration to go do something, to do more with their life as well. And so that's where the edutainment methodology came from, KRS-One.
Mhm. Mm, thank you for that. I think it serves as good context for those of you listening or watching, to understand what really, education and then entertainment and then that fusion of the two really is. So thank you for sharing a bit of that. But there's something that you mentioned about obviously building teams and then having, being the leader of these different teams. But before that, you were involved in the different aspects of, the organization. And what I tied to that obviously is leadership. And around that, as a leader obviously in your industry and of the organization that you run, what key factors have you found that, really inspire the people that you're working with to do more, and, to lead in their own capacities as well, and sort of follow the mission and the vision that you have set out?
A lot of people see leadership as top and then everybody
Mhm,
else at the bottom. I
mhm,
don't see it that way. It's a
mhm,
circle, right? Everybody is a part of this circle, and all of us are trying to accomplish something together, right? If anything,
mhm.
I'll even use the fist, because our logo is a fist, right? So the
Yep.
fist is one hand, right? And let's say the
Mm,
leader is the longest finger, whatever. But everybody plays a role, and together we can go
mhm,
higher together, right?
mhm,
So being a leader is recognizing everybody has a vision in what you're trying to accomplish. If somebody is applying to work with you, or somebody wants to work with you, they have their own vision towards the mission. So firstly, you want to establish the mission, right? What's your mission?
mhm,
What's your vision? What's your values in an organization? Once you create that and you have the people who want to come support what you set out, then what I always do when I bring somebody else on is I ask them what they want to accomplish. So then all of us, so if you want to accomplish this, okay, come on this team and let's see how that fits into the mission, right? Because I can tell you what to do, but it's easier if we work together towards both of us achieving what we want to do. The other thing I've learned in terms of leadership is I don't believe in a top-down approach. I don't believe in I don't believe in a top-down approach, but I do believe in multiple ways of leading. So you can lead by delegation, you can lead by
mhm,
example, you can lead by strategy, you can lead by building the vision. Like, there's so many ways you can be a leader, right? And I like to let everybody feel like they're a leader in their role. So I want everyone to feel like they can take ownership of this role that they have, and that this role that they have can ultimately help them, not even like help them help the organization, and the organization helps them. So it's just like this figure eight model, where everybody is
Mhm.
being fed, right? Everybody is benefiting from this idea, and we all win together. The last thing I'll say on leadership is we talk so much about independence. So this leader being the top, being independent, but we need to work towards interdependence. And interdependence is that we all rely on one another, right? In a car, if the engine doesn't work, then the wheels have no purpose, right?
Exactly.
And the car is probably the best example, because the engine, you would say, is a leader. The engine's what gets you there. It's what gets everything going. But without all the other pieces, then it doesn't work. So everybody's playing their role towards moving ahead.
And I want to link that to something interesting because you said obviously everyone is working together to bring something, to keep things moving or to achieve the vision that you've set up. And I want to link that to networking, because I find that networking and then eventually mentorship plays a key role in shaping, who you end up becoming or the person that you envision for yourself.
Hmm.
And I wanted to ask you about that actually, what you believe the power of networking first and then mentorship is. And as young people, what do you think we should be focusing on or how you think we should be approaching building our networks and then finding the right mentors to guide us to become the leaders that we would eventually like to become.
The first thing I'll say in terms of networking is you want to identify people who are doing things that are similar to what you want to do, and then find where they are. Find where they find where they are. What rooms are they in? What spaces are they in? What industries do they navigate? You almost want to, like, I that's what I did. I'll just speak to my experience. I saw people who were leading organizations that were similar to mine. I found out places they were. I was there. I listened to them speak. I listened to a
Mhm.
lot of different people in the industry speak. And I think when it comes to networking, one of the best things that I've learned is networking is, hey, what can you do for me?
Mhm.
But networking should be, what can we do for each other?
Mhm.
Right? Because if you go into a space saying, I want to meet these people because I want to go further in my career, then that's very selfish of you. And so people feel
Mhm.
that, and especially people who don't have a lot of time, they don't have a lot of energy to give. So one of the biggest, if you're listening right now and you want to get better at networking, one of the questions one of my mentors told me is, when you're in a space and you meet someone that you're interested in getting to connect, this is one question you should ask them. How can I bring value to what you are doing? That's a very key question, because what that says
Mhm.
is you're interested in what they are doing,
Mhm.
right? And then you can
Mhm.
find a way to merge those interests. So what they are looking for, what you are looking for, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's fine. But if you're looking to gain something from someone, you have to give something up first, right? Or you have to give
Mhm.
something, because life works in a symbiotic
Mhm.
nature. What you put out is what you get back, right? So if you're constantly trying to get from people, you're not going to be getting a lot back. You know what I'm saying? Or that means you're not giving, and people aren't likely to keep giving to you if you're only taking. So what value can you give to other people? That's what I've learned in networking. But also be genuine, be authentic. Like, it's so important to be genuine, to be authentic. It's also really important, like, your body language is really important. Your first impressions are really important. So your body language, you want to keep yourself open. Even before you go to a networking event, make sure you're in a good headspace. So in the morning, I don't know if you need to go for a walk to clear your mind, if you need to journal, if you need to pray, if you need 8 hours of sleep, if you need to meditate, if you need to stretch, if you need to do yoga. I don't know what you need to do, but make sure that you're in a good headspace when you go into those spaces. You're in a good
Mhm.
space, right? The other thing about mentorship, I guess the last thing I'll share about mentorship is, so often we see mentorship in my as like a pedagogy, like the
Mhm.
mentor is here and the mentee is here. But I also see it like this personally. I think two people
Mhm.
can offer something to each other, no matter what age, no matter what experience, what differences they have, how much money one person has opposed to the other. It's really about what you can give and what you can receive. But being a mentor, selecting a mentor is being mindful of what you want out of a mentor. You have to know what you want. And it's almost like dating sometimes. Like, you can talk to the person, just say, hey, this is where I'm looking to go in my life. This is where I'm looking to head, right? And this is what I'm looking to do with my life. Where are you, and how does that work together? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at the end of the day, you have to be clear about what you need, You have to be strategic about what you want, and be authentic and vulnerable, or open with the person enough that they can offer you what you need.
Hmm. And how have some of these, different people that you've worked with, the mentors that you have had? I was doing some research and I found that you worked with prominent figures like Terry Crews. And I was like, wow, this is huge. But how has working with individuals like this influenced your career and the messaging that you give out through the work that you do?
I'm a sponge. Whenever I go into a space, I'm always
Mhm.
trying to learn. I'm always in the space of learning or taking something away, because I think every day is an opportunity to learn. So when I'm in those spaces, I listen more than I speak. When there's an opportunity to speak, then I'll speak, but I listen. I not try, I listen because I want to take in information. And when I'm in those spaces, I think the major thing that I'm always very cognizant of is just the opportunity to find out what this person wants, what I want, and how we can find something in between that we both win. Um, but I also realize, like, people like Terry Crews, all the famous people I met, they're human just like you. And so
Mhm.
sometimes you might feel nervous to talk to them. You might feel nervous to interact and engage with them. But all I can say is they woke up in the morning and they're going to go to sleep just like you do. They eat like you do. They drink like you do. They're human. They just have a different lived experience than you do. And I've just learned along the journey, just to treat people fairly, treat people kindly, be open. Don't come with any assumptions. And if you do have assumptions, be mindful of your assumptions and be mindful of your expectations before you go looking for a mentor, or before connect with famous people. Like, just check your expectations.
True, true. And something that I do want to ask, so it's popped up in my mind right now as we're talking about it, is how would you advise, people that sort of have this fear towards these prominent figures and like, oh my God, I can't meet this person because, I don't know how I'll react. But then you have said something that's relatively interesting, that they're just people like us. And, so many people believe that. But then when it comes to that moment, there's this fear that, oh, I honestly don't know how I'm going to be able to, to get through to them or to share what I want to actually share with them. How would you, advise someone that, has that fear to go about, approaching that?
I think a lot of the fear is you don't know what to say. So I often start with a question, because a question is one of those things where often it gives people an opportunity to respond. So let's say there's a famous person, you're going to a conference, there's somebody famous who's going to be there. Of course, there's no guarantee you're going to meet them, but if there's an opportunity, what I would do is I would research them. I would do some research on who they are. I would look into their interests. I'd look into something new that they're doing. Maybe they started a new program. Maybe they started a new show. I don't know, something that they're doing. And so, based on what they're doing or what they're interested in right now, check their Instagram, see what they recently posted. I don't know, like whatever you can find, and ask them a very interesting question. One question I ask people who are a little bit older is, I ask them a question that can benefit me, but that's also beneficial to them. So, for
Hmm.
example, I remember when I turned 25, I can't remember. I've met a lot of people in my life, but I met somebody when I was 25 years old, very prominent person. And I remember when I met them, I asked them, "What advice would you give your 25-year-old self?" And then they paused for a second and they started thinking. And then they gave me a response and they said, "Thank you. I never thought about that after," because it was something that I was looking for me, but I also had an idea that it could be beneficial for them. So it was something that they benefited because they got to reflect on their journey. And then I also took something away too. Then the conversation started. So if you're nervous, there's nothing wrong with being nervous. But I always have a few questions that I can ask people that is makes it about them and not about me. Right? If you go to somebody and you make something about yourself, immediately they're not always going to be interested, right? Because yeah, some people just don't have the energy to give like that. So
True.
if you can ask a question that's focused on them, if you can do your
Mhm.
research, but also know, if today was your last day and you were to go to your grave and say, "Man, I had this opportunity to meet this person, but I was too scared." Chances are nine
Mhm.
out of 10 times you would go ahead and meet the person if you knew that you only had one more day to live. So
Mhm.
tomorrow is not promised. You might only have one day to live, right? So you might as well focus on doing what you can do in the moment that you have and taking advantage of the opportunities that come.
That's true. I agree with you on that. And I'm really enjoying this because there's a lot that I'm learning, and I think there's a lot that obviously the audio listeners and the people watching are picking from obviously experience, your knowledge. And one thing that I do want to point out is, personally for me, seeing your journey sort of started last year, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, the work that he's been able to do all these years. I really need to meet him. I really need to to
Mhm.
speak to him. And the reason for that is because the way that you approached your work in terms of bringing people together for a specific cause and then continuing the work of inspiring and connecting, I think for me that really resonated heavily with that. And my question is, how have you been able to use your platform that you've been given, or the one that you've built, to address and continue to inspire change in different community issues?
It's really a big part of my work, whether it's through Rise, through my poetry, through my speaking. I think there's so many community issues that people are being affected by. And I
Mhm,
often like to listen or understand where people are enough to be able to speak to those issues. And how I use my work, to help deal with them is something called design thinking. Design thinking
mhm,
is a methodology that really predicates on understanding the people that you're looking to support. So if you are an entrepreneur, design thinking is going to be your best friend, and it should be your best friend, because what it does is
mhm,
it centers the problem that you're trying to address. So let's say the problem you're trying to address is violence. I don't know, right? So
mhm,
you know what? Mine was lack of safe spaces, and lack of safe spaces cause violence. So I'll say that. So I went out and I talked to people. The people who I was looking to serve, I talked to them. So think about the people that you're looking to help, the community or demographic that you're looking to support. When you think about the people you're looking to support, ask them questions about the issue, get to know their plight with the issue, get to know their journey, what the issue is and how it's affecting them on a daily basis. So you want to listen, you want to ask questions,
mhm,
listen, and really understand the problem. The more you understand the problem, the better you can support. What I also want to say
mhm,
is the problem is amazing. If it wasn't for the problems of the world, for example, Darren, you wouldn't have Young
mhm.
Eye International if education and lack of resources were not a thing in Uganda, right? For me,
Sure.
here in Toronto, Scarborough, if there wasn't a lack of safe spaces, then I wouldn't have been able to create my organization. So problems are not a bad thing. Problems
Mhm,
happen all the time. They're going to happen anyways, no matter what. A problem is not a bad thing. So you want to rephrase the way you look at a problem and see the problem as an opportunity. Ask yourself, with this problem, how can I become better? How can I learn? How can I grow? How can I become a better person? Those are the main things. So look at the problem as in a different way. But through all the work I do, design thinking is really the platform or the bedrock of the
mhm,
work that I do, because it's I can't go into your community and say this is what you need if I don't understand you, right? Like I have to
mhm.
understand you to be able to help you.
Help you exactly. On that point, would you term or would you call yourself a social entrepreneur, an activist? What do you think would best describe Randell?
Um, it's hard to say, but I definitely social
Mhm,
entrepreneur. But I would
mhm,
say artivist as well. I use art as my activism.
mhm,
That's something I would
mhm,
say. Artivist is really important to
mhm.
me.
The reason I asked that is because the next question, I wanted to explore the aspect of the power of representation and building communities, and obviously seeing that in the work that you do. Um, why do you feel like it is something that not just Canada needs to be actively involved in, but the world, obviously in different capacities, because obviously there's different prejudice that exists in different parts of the world. But why do you think that that is something that needs to be addressed and imminently solved, if it can be solved?
I'm sorry, I just forgot the it. What was the main thing you're talking about?
I was talking about the power of representation.
Representation.
Yes,
Sorry, my apologies.
representation. Yeah. No problem.
Representation is very important. It's important because when you see yourself reflected in someone else doing
Mhm,
something that you're interested in, or doing something that you may not even thought was possible for you, it opens your mind to what is possible. I'll give you an example. When I was 16 years old, I heard this poet named Buna Muhammad on stage at University of Toronto. Buna was performing on stage. I was sitting in the first row. When I saw him
mhm,
performing, immediately I knew one day I'm going to do that one day. And that's what I do for so many young people now. So Representation
Mhm.
is very important, no matter what, especially in places like Canada, North America, in the Western world, simply because there's just a lack of seeing ourselves and the excellence that lives inside of us. And you need
Mhm.
to see the excellence to know that you are excellent.
True, I agree. And as we wrap up, I think this is a very pertinent question that would be great to hear your thoughts and your opinions from. Obviously, given your experience, as an author, inspirational speaker, arts educator, and community leader, what advice? This is now just simply on advice. What advice would you offer to young individuals such as myself, looking to use their voices, and those talents that you have mentioned to drive positive change, in their communities locally, but also internationally if possible?
The advice that I would give comes from Denzel Washington.
Hmm.
And because it's helped me in so many ways, I want to share this with a lot of young people. So before I say what Denzel said, I want all of you young people who are listening or interested in entrepreneurship or paying attention, I want you to know this thing. You came here with a purpose, and you have a beautiful, amazing purpose. Your purpose is something that is buried deep inside of you. You have to take the time to get to know yourself, to love yourself, and appreciate who you are. You have to understand your skills and work on your skills. They say it takes 10,000 hours to master something. So spend time investing into your skills, your gifts, and your talents. Don't let them lay there dormant. The next
Hmm.
thing is serve. Give back. Use your skills and your gifts to make the world a better place. Give back. Focus on helping people in any way, shape, or form. We are so powerful that what you put out into the world is what you get back in return. So if you do good, then good will come back to you. If you do bad, then bad will come back to you. And that is life. I'm not
Hmm.
saying bad things won't happen if you're always a good person. Bad things will happen, but good and bad are also subjective. What is good for you may not be
Hmm.
good for me. So it's subjective, it's how you interpret it. The final thing I'll say is use your purpose to make the world a better place. But Denzel Washington says, say thank you in advance for what is already yours. One more time. Say thank you in advance for what is already yours. If you have
True.
a dream, if you have a desire, if you have an aspiration to do something with your life, know that it is possible, that it is capable, that you have it in your hands to make it happen. But you have to say thank you. So if you pray, I pray. If you pray, instead of praying and saying, God, please help me, or whoever you may pray to, instead of wishing and hoping it comes, instead say thank you. Instead, think that you already have it. Think that
Hmm.
you've already done it. Just because you can't see it done with your eyes doesn't mean that it cannot be done or that it hasn't been done yet. You have to know how amazingly talented, how special, how gifted, how powerful you
Hmm.
are, and know that you are capable of anything you put your mind to. But say thank
True.
you in advance for what is already yours.
Yours. Wow, I don't know about you guys watching or listening, but that is definitely been spoken straight to my heart, and definitely feel inspired to continue doing more and to continue in one way or the other implementing the different ideas that we have, because a lot of times the honest truth is we're afraid. We don't feel we're good enough. We don't feel like what we're doing really has an impact on the lives of the people that we're working with. And I think having words like this, sharing, wisdom like this from experience, Rendell, I think has advised and will continue to advise and inspire so many people that that will eventually listen to this and then pick up with your journey just like I have. But right before we go, you touched on something that was very interesting: purpose. And I know there might not be an answer for this, but it's a question that I like to ask different people that that I interact with. How do you think people find their purpose, or how do you think people identify that, okay, this is my purpose?
Your purpose is ever unfolding.
Hmm.
Your purpose is something that isn't always clear, but I think you have to get to know yourself more. You have to reflect
Mhm.
with and on yourself more. So, what I'll say is to find your purpose, one thing I've learned is, let's say, Darren, this is you. All right. This is
Mhm.
Darren's life. And Darren, this is also you, the observer. And Darren, you're
Mhm.
observing life. You're observing yourself going through university. You're observing yourself traveling. You're observing yourself aging. You're observing yourself growing, maybe finding a partner. Like whatever it is, you're observing yourself. Always
Mhm.
stand back and observe. You have to take the time to reflect on your journey. All right. The second thing is ask yourself, what do you like and what are you good at? Like, what are your interests? What are you
Mhm.
good at? What issues in the world really bother you, right? You may ask all
Mhm.
those questions and still not know what your purpose is, and that's fine. But all I'm saying is every day you have to find a way. So, another way of finding your purpose is knowing that every day you have to dig, all right? Maybe you don't know what you're digging for, but at the like let's say you're digging for gold, all right?
Yeah.
You have to take your shovel every day and dig and dig and dig
Mhm.
and dig. But when you dig, eventually what you're doing is you're getting closer and closer and closer to the gold. The gold might not even be the purpose. The gold might just
Mhm.
be the treasure. It might just be the chest that you have to then open to find what's inside of it.
What's
I'm
inside of it?
taking too long to answer the question, but I'm just trying to give more examples because it's not
Mhm.
easy. Like finding your purpose takes time. It takes a long time.
True.
But also like I think to find your purpose is to be in a constant space of inspiration. Be inspired. Listen to people who inspire you. Listen to motivational talks. Listen to people who have accomplished their purpose. Follow people who have found their purpose. Follow people who are living in their purpose. You want to be surrounded by purpose. Like make sure your friends are people who live purposefully. They live on
Mhm.
purpose, with purpose. You have to surround yourself with purpose. Listen to
Mhm.
purpose. Soak in purpose. When you watch a movie, watch somebody who is on their purpose. Like you have to just
Mhm.
envelop yourself in this idea of purpose and envelop yourself in this idea of people who are living life fully on a
Fully.
mission
Mhm.
with a vision. Um, and the last thing to that idea is you gotta love yourself, man. You really gotta love yourself. Like as cliche as it is, you gotta love who you are. Like really learn to love who you are. And I think the more you learn to love who you are, the more you learn about yourself and the more you're willing to give and pour into yourself. And you have to
Mhm.
invest and keep investing and keep investing and keep investing into your person.
Mhm.
And I think eventually, you find what your purpose is on this earth. And even if you
True.
still don't find your purpose after you did all of that, keep going. That
Keep
means you have
going.
more digging to do.
Or digging to do. I agree. And I think how we'll end this is there is a quote that one of my favorite quotes. I'm going to paraphrase it. It goes like, "You will not be distracted by comparison if you're captivated with your purpose." And I
Mm,
think
mm.
I think that's a very very powerful quote.
Ooh, I gotta write that down. Hold on, I'm gonna type it. That's beautiful, man. That's really beautiful.
Mm,
Ooh,
it's something that always, yeah, you won't be distracted by comparisons, obviously comparing yourself with peers or people above you or people behind you.
okay.
If you're captivated by your purpose and you know that this is me, I love myself, I know what I'm capable of doing, and regardless of what's happening around me, I'm going to stick to what I'm doing because I know that this is my purpose and this is the reason why I've been put here to continue to do this work. And I think to end this, it would be great to leave with be enveloped in your purpose, like you've said in a beautiful way, because I think that as many as young people, that's the kind of advice, that's the kind of thinking that we need to have as we go and we navigate through this world and try to be successful in whatever capacities that we're in. But Randell, I do want to thank you again for being on the Young Guy International podcast. It's been great. Personally, I've been inspired by this. I know that the people watching, those listening, are going to be like, "Wow, this was a very powerful conversation that we had," and hopefully, there's a one or two things that they can implement into their lives and sort of use that to lead their life. So I do want to thank you. I want to thank R.I.S.E Edutainment as well for allowing you to come onto this podcast, and
Mhm.
hopefully in the future there's more collaboration and more work that we can do together.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Darren. My pleasure. And thank you to everyone who's listening.
Thank you. For those of you watching, thank you again. Obviously, this is available on YouTube. Please like, comment, subscribe. And then for those of you listening, thank you for listening wherever you're listening to this from. We appreciate it here at Young Guy International. We will see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.